Merab Dvalishvili's victory at UFC 306 tells us that a new era of fighters has officially arrived, the era of goofy cardio machines. How did it happen that in the world's best league, champions are fighters who swing at the air, awkwardly run around the octagon until they fall, and, well, Bilal?
Oh my God, Bilal, remember the tortilla. Muhammad shows amazing footwork. He is ready for takedown.
Why are the most technically skilled fighters on the planet competent in all aspects of martial arts, losing to them without a chance? To understand the phenomenon of these new champions, especially Merab, whom I'll discuss at the end, we need to recognize an obvious current MMA meta: pressure. Add to this resilience, which is essential to execute this tactic. Yes, despite awkward technique, these two aspects are enough to become the best fighter in the world. Let's go through the goofy style champions in chronological order. The first champion from this unique school of martial arts was middleweight Dricus du Plessis. He made his name known to the world after a shocking win over Robert Whittaker, the best middleweight of the past 5 years after Adesanya. Many expected a technical beatdown from Robert, but instead they got a brutal knockout from Dricus. But how was such a technical fighter knocked out in just a round and a half? It all comes down to du Plessis' primary technique around which he builds his style: the goofy blitz. All of Dricus' offensive actions revolve around this strange rush toward the opponent. He always uses it at the start of the fight, first to press and second to study his opponent's reactions. When Dricus charges forward, he uses hand combinations, and the order of his strikes sometimes seems random. Sometimes it's a 1-2 hook, other times just a 2-1 or a series of hooks. He also charges forward with kicks to the body, head, and legs. But with kicks, he does something unique. He's the only UFC fighter who rushes forward and kicks not with the rear leg, but with the lead leg. And this is goofy genius. When you rush forward, the leg that will stop your movement is the lead leg. That's why most fighters use that leg to halt their momentum while striking with the rear leg or their hands. But du Plessis has learned to stop without using his lead leg, allowing him to kick with it. This is something even the best strikers in the world, like Adesanya, don't expect. And it's one reason why he looks so awkward when running or kicking. But the uniqueness of his goofy blitz doesn't stop there. After throwing a series of different attacks, Dricus studies his opponent's reactions, then throws a feint and changes up his attacks, or he fakes a rush, stops suddenly, and lands a strike. This is also why his coordination seems off. Take Whittaker for example. In the first round, he learned to close the distance when Dricus pressured, but he did it faster and more skillfully, winning the exchanges but losing the fight. Why? Because he exhausted himself, and du Plessis caught him with a simple feint. First, he faked the blitz, to which Whittaker responded with a left hook, then landed a powerful jab, rushing into close distance, which dropped Robert. Interestingly, the only tough fight for Dricus was against Sean Strickland, another pressure fighter. But unlike du Plessis, Strickland's pressure is steady, working at a constant pace, which is why he also became champion after beating the classically technical Israel Adesanya. A similar matchup happened in welterweight, where the highly technical Leon Edwards defended his title against Bilal Muhammad, who also uses steady, constant pressure to win. But it is the strategy that makes Muhammad's pressure so effective, as seen in his most spectacular fight against the undefeated wrestler Sean Brady. Bilal used a brilliant game plan. He knew that even if he won the wrestling exchanges with Brady, he would tire, and by the later rounds, his pressure might decrease. Another factor to consider is that Sean is young and had never faced someone pressing him in striking before. This is the worst thing that can happen to a wrestler because attempting takedowns with your back to the cage is nearly impossible. Muhammad built his fight plan around this, deciding to fight standing up with constant pressure until he broke Brady. At first it looked awkward and even a bit pitiful, but after a few minutes, Bilal's cardio kickboxing shadow boxing routine started to pay off. By the second round, the undefeated Sean Brady was battered and knocked out near the fence. Through his philosophy of constant steady pressure, Bilal managed to claim the championship against the incredibly technical Leon Edwards. At first, Leon succeeded in countering Bilal's awkward rushes, but the pace never dropped. Over time, Edwards broke down mentally, as seen in his corner when he openly lashed out at his coach. Muhammad didn't let up, and in his usual fashion, almost lost the fight due to a cut in the last seconds. However, setting that aside, Muhammad mentally broke Edwards and took the title. Much like the new bantamweight champion, Merab Dvalishvili, who, in a sense, can use blitz attacks for takedowns like Dricus du Plessis, and when necessary, apply steady pressure like Bilal Muhammad. Throughout his career, Merab became known as an uncompromising pressure machine, with several examples showcasing this clearly. We're going to watch the fight that sent the legendary Jose Aldo into retirement. What did Merab do that was so remarkable? Of course, he started the fight with heavy pressure, which is especially effective against Aldo, who was always known for tiring after the third round. But this fight is only 3 rounds, so what will Merab do? A failed attempt at a leg takedown, but Dvalishvili transitions to a clinch. As soon as Dvalishvili tries to strike from the clinch, he immediately loses control and gets caught by a left hook on the exit. Merab lands a jab, and Aldo counters with a left hook. Merab throws another jab, but this time it's a feint to bait Aldo into throwing a hook, which Merab slips under for a takedown. Get used to this sequence because you're going to see it at least 10 more times. Again, the setup for a takedown, a real strike that makes the opponent react, followed by a feint that leads into a takedown. Jose lands another hook on the clinch exit, the same one that dropped Merab in the first round. The same takedown setup, again, a real punch to bait the opponent, then a feint leading into a takedown. And once more, a real punch, followed by the takedown feint. Merab strikes with his hand and loses control in the clinch again, nearly eating a left hook, which already dropped him in the first round. Yet again, the same setup for a takedown. Real strike. Feint, takedown. Aldo shows that at close range, Merab's feints don't work. He can simply stop everything with a knee, which works as a counter to both the strike and the takedown feint, making it a fatal move for Merab's plan. Aldo didn't think about whether the strike was a feint or real and immediately ducked to avoid a takedown, clinch, and prevent Merab from attacking. Aldo throws a jab to make Dvalishvili strike, followed by a feint and takedown. But Merab lands a low kick, followed by an overhand, which prevented Aldo's planned knee from working. It was an extremely close fight. In my opinion, it was an ideal candidate for a draw, but that night, Merab won. Now we'll see Dvalishvili's most dominant victory, the fight where he mentally broke Peter Yan. Merab fakes a couple of times and immediately goes for a takedown. Peter is known for his slow starts, needing time to study his opponent and catch the timing, which made the matchup with Dvalishvili twice as hard. That's why he missed the takedown and got lost after it. 2 feints and another shot at the legs. Yan gets flustered again, making a silly attempt at locking in a guillotine. A jab feint follows, and Merab goes for one of his signature single leg takedowns, where the right hand is used as a straight strike. While the opponent is distracted by the hand, he grabs the opponent's leg to put them on the canvas. But the problem with Dvalishvili is that his attempts rarely succeed, and when they do, the opponent hardly ever stays on the ground. Another feinting combination leads to a single leg attempt. Merab immediately realizes it's a failed attempt, so he tries a sweep. but as with much of Dvalishvili's execution, it was rather clumsy. The opponent stayed on his feet, but Merab used it as an opportunity to press his opponent against the cage. Dvalishvili throws a straight punch, followed by a feint for another straight. While Jan is thinking about that, his leg ends up in Merab's left hand, and the feinting straight controls his neck. This causes Peter to lower his torso to gain balance, but Dvalishvili cleverly grabs Jan in a guillotine. Now Peter has to defend his neck with his supporting hand, leaving him almost no ability to balance. Merab takes advantage and presses him against the cage. Coming out of the clinch, Merab adds an elbow to the head, which was a good strike and a way to protect himself from Jan's left hook on the exit. Jan mimics Merab, ducks as a feint, then goes for a takedown under Merab's counter hook. But unlike Dvalishvili, Peter succeeds with the takedown. However, since he executed his move at an angle, his balance was disrupted and Merab took advantage to stay on top. Beyond Jan's butterfly guard, Merab couldn't advance and quickly lost the opportunity to keep Peter on the ground. That was the first round against Peter. Now let's look at the fifth and final round. Ideally, by the fifth round, Jan should have adapted to Merab's style and Dvalishvili should be tired. A punch forces Jan to dodge, which Merab uses to grab him in a guillotine. Both understand it's not a real submission attempt, but Jan still needs to defend. Merab capitalizes on this and drives Jan to the cage, landing knees to his head and exiting the clinch with a right elbow. Jan sees the approach again and dodges with a high guard. This time, Merab doesn't go for the guillotine, but lands an elbow to the head. Merab feints a low kick. Jan prepares to counter with a straight punch, which Merab expects. He ducks deeply under Peter's strike and uses the takedown attempt to drive Jan toward the fence. After conditioning Jan to expect knee strikes to the thigh, Peter seems to have forgotten that his leg could be hooked. That's exactly what Merab does, but as usual, it's a takedown, with control for half a second. Afterward, there's another sweep attempt. It's clear that this moment finally broke Peter. Every jab from Merab draws a jab in response from Peter as he backs away, which only boosts Dvalishvili's confidence. He sees that Jan is now afraid of the takedowns and ready to retreat at any moment. A classic takedown, a straight punch, and a grab for the lead leg. But Peter didn't even try to defend. He just fell, muttering, "Mama, please, no." After that moment, Jan allowed a few more takedowns. It was outright domination, primarily due to Merab's cardio, which mentally broke his opponent. And finally, I'll analyze the fight against the intimidating, though declining, Marlon Moraes. From the first seconds of the fight, Moraes aimed to land powerful low kicks and counter Merab with a left hook. But the problem with the left hook was that Dvalishvili moves like a goblin with a motor strapped to his back. As a result, Marlon couldn't land the hook before being struck with a straight to the head. However, his solution was very interesting. Moraes decided to duck deeply when Merab started his combinations and resurfaced with a left hook. The first time he landed it decently on Dvalishvili, and the second time he knocked him down and essentially won the fight. If not for the good referee who noticed that Merab was still in the game and allowed him to fight back, the fight could have ended there. But seconds before the end of the first round, Dvalishvili turned the tide and almost finished his opponent on the ground. Time ran out, and he finished him in the second round. The key secret to Merab Dvalishvili's style is that he fights relentlessly. He wants to win more than his opponents, and nothing can stop him. That's why they call him the Machine. After seeing all of this, it's hard to believe that a striker who needs space, like O'Malley, will have anything to offer Merab. However, for his title fight, he changed tactics to prevent Sean O'Malley from landing shots on him, as Moraes and Cejudo had done. This time, knowing that his opponent expected leg takedowns. Dvalishvili moved a lot and stepped back, luring his opponent in. He aimed to perform takedowns on the counter and sometimes shadowboxed in front of O'Malley, baiting him to counterattack and fall into a takedown. In reality, this approach to the fight is more surprising than it seems, as he essentially abandoned what had made him undefeated for so long. Such faith in the game plan requires incredible self-confidence and calm. This was reflected in the fighters' heart rates during the fight, with Merab's always lower than Sean's, showcasing his cardio preparation and mental calm. By the end of the fight, Sean had figured out Merab's strategy, but it was already too late. Now, Dvalishvili is the new bantamweight champion and the poster child for the goofy cardio style. But what do you think? Who can stop these fighters? Oh, and yes, Alejandro Pantoja can also be attributed to the style, but who cares?